Erev Tov Chavrim, I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Very, very troubling tragedy for the United States, American people today, with this shooting that has left some 59 people dead. Over 500 people have been wounded at a country concert in Las Vegas, Nevada. There's been all types of information that is coming out. There has been reports of possibly multiple shooters. It is believed that there was a lone gunman that was involved in this, and he was the one that actually killed all these people, wounded all these people. I kind of find that very suspicious to begin with, that this man, Stephen Paddock, was actually involved in killing so many people, or even if he was even involved at all. Could he have been set up by a more sinister organization that wanted to create massive chaos and panic and bloodshed in the United States to justify some other future event that's going on in the Middle East there? I have reached out to Stephen Paddock's brother, who is in Orlando. Hopefully we will hear back from him to speak a little bit about our thoughts on this. But of course, our prayers definitely are going out to the grieving families tonight, for those families that have been shocked by this devastating event that has happened in Las Vegas, Nevada. Regardless, it is a terrorist attack. No matter how it comes down at the end of the day, it is a terrorist attack. The Wall Street Journal, Las Vegas suspect likely used automatic rifle in massacre, is what's being said here. 16 firearms in the gunman's hotel room and 18 more in his home. Ammunition, nitrate, fertilizer used, and explosives found in the suspect's car. His brother, when being questioned by news reporters earlier today, said he couldn't believe it. He had just helped his brother move not long ago, and he said other than his brother owning maybe a couple of handguns and one rifle, he didn't know of any other weapons whatsoever. And of course, the man is 64 years old. Too many strange things are going on. And if you look here on the screen, this is the hotel there that he was supposedly firing from, allegedly. The window shot out here, and also in another hotel room. How did the guy get around to two different sides of this hotel is really beyond me. But let's look at some more of what's being said here. The gunman who authorities said killed at least 59 people at Las Vegas Music Festival appears to have used at least one fully automatic rifle and had more than a dozen other firearms in his hotel room, law enforcement officials have said. Investigators found at least 16 firearms, some fully automatic, in a room on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino. Two law enforcement officials said the weapons included an AR-15 style and an AK-47 style rifles, as well as a large cache of ammunition, they said. Now, it's kind of interesting. They're already saying he had at least one, but in the article here we find out he had at least two, from what we could tell. As I listened to the different audio clips that were coming out, there were two different types of fully automatic weapons going off from what I could detect. Of course, I am former law enforcement and former military. I was considered a master of arms in law enforcement, so I have a very profound understanding of weapons, how they sound, etc. So I just say that not as an expert, but as one that was very, very knowledgeable of weapons many years ago. I also want to bring to your attention something else here. I took the time on Google Maps here to look at this at a 3D, because when you're looking at the man being at the 32nd floor, this is when I really begin to question, how could so many people be killed, wounded? Naturally, you can understand that. But one man being able to even wound so many different people. All right. Now, as we kind of grab a hold of this scene here, this is the Mandalay Bay Hotel. And obviously, somewhere right in this area here, the 32nd floor, this gunman is actually firing, or alleged he's the one firing. I have a feeling that there's more than one gunman involved, and even our good friend from China that was watching this as well noticed some very interesting news things that came up, but then oddly disappeared. Couldn't be found anymore, that were suggesting more than one gunman. In fact, there's also been sources coming out saying some woman was going through the crowd there, warning the people that they were all going to die. Now, if you just take the 32nd floor and go straight down to the ground, you're already looking at 300 feet, roughly 100 meters down, a football field away, just from the 32nd floor down to the ground. All right, now that would take a pretty good marksman to begin with, but then you take into account all the way across the actual the front part of the building there. Now you're dealing with about 200 yards. Then across there, another 400 yards away, the shots are being fired. And of course, these people are trapped inside of here and nowhere to go. There's also reports that the lights were turned on. That was actually in actually a report here. Oh gosh, wrong one. I'll wait for go into it in just a little bit. But that they were fenced in, 10-foot wall. The lights were turned on. No way out. The exits were all closed off. Very, very sad situation indeed. And then oddly enough, of course, right across from this pyramid shape with the Sphinx and everything, that this is actually happening at. So what was going on is just really a mystery. And of course, if we come back in here from the hotel viewpoint, overlooking this place here where he would have been shooting at here from now right here going across, like I said, that is a very long shot. And again, for 58 deaths, you could say that would just be random with automatic rifle fire. But you know what? When it comes to wartime and stuff, if you think about it, it takes someone that knows what they're doing to be able to get that many kills, especially for just being one man. Now, granted, the people are in a tight-knit area. I realize that. Sporadic fire, anybody could start getting picked off. And yes, you could have a much higher death toll as a result. I just think it's a little bit odd at the distance there that, you know, more wounded I could understand, but that many people, that many casualties just kind of, it seems a bit suspicious in my opinion there. So let's take a look at this. So when we talk about the, as we go back on natural news here, 5 things that just don't add up about the Las Vegas mass shooting. And this is the article I was actually going to go to. And he says here, 1, dozens of concert goers reported the presence of multiple shooters. And of course that could be understood. Number 2, who warned concert goers they were all going to die a full 45 minutes before the shooting started? Then we have the weapon you hear on videos was full auto, which is almost impossible to acquire through legal means. And there has been suggestion that it could have been altered. That is true. I do know that for a fact. You can actually even file down the catch in the bolt mechanism in this to where it would become fully automatic. That's another possibility. Why were the exits blocked, trapping victims like rats in a maze? And of course, why did the shooter have as many as 10 firearms in his room? See, that's another thing that just doesn't seem to add up. Not for one guy. Even if he was planning on trying to take out a lot of people. Well, you can only shoot one gun at a time. And of course, if there's multiple guns going off, he can't do that himself. Not with any kind of accuracy, because if you're just kind of aiming aimlessly, those shots could have easily gone completely in another direction, not even hitting that arena completely out of the ballpark field. This seems to be more of a well-coordinated effort from what we can see ourselves there. Just looking at it from a different standpoint there. Anyway, Snoop says Islamic State's claim of responsibility for the Las Vegas shooting confounds experts. The claim originating from its effectively a propaganda arm of the Islamic State lacks credible evidence and has confounded some analysts. Or does it? Well, you know what? I think maybe Islamic State did have something to do with it. My question is it really true that Mr. Paddock had anything to do with the Islamic State in the very beginning? Just one reason we'd like to talk to his brother to find out what he knows about his brother's loyalty and love. Did he really have a love for the Islamic State? Doesn't look like the kind of guy that you would expect that to be. So I have to question some of these things. Also, another issue that I wanted to go into about all this, ISIS, the U.S., and Israel. This is by Barry Chamish. Now, Barry Chamish was a good friend of mine. He's been here on Israeli News Live on multiple occasions there. Barry would invite us to his program as well. And Barry, of course, he passed away back in August of last year, 2016. He was an Israeli. He fought in the Lebanon War. He wrote such books as Who Assassinated Yitzhak Rabin, a bestseller. He's completely true and loved his people, loved Israel, but he also recognized there was a very evil and sinister, corrupt government that was dragging the people, the Israeli people, down a very evil road. And then the regular Israeli citizen was totally oblivious to this. And that's why one of the things that he shared with me, even, well, he said it publicly as well, but he shared it with me when we would speak privately. Not only that he knew that they were still trying to kill him, but Barry would tell me, he said, Steve, he said that it was Ariel Sharon that was involved, Shimon Peres was involved in the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin as far as making sure it got done. And it was also, he claimed that it was Shimon Peres that poisoned Ariel Sharon. So, some very outlandish statements. He was an Israeli investigative journalist, well respected, but like even his, I believe his own daughter believes that something was very foul in his untimely death. Now, I say this because I want to bring you back and I want to share with you what Barry Chamish said about ISIS and who created ISIS. And this might weigh in on a little bit why this might be considered Islamic State backing what actually happened in Las Vegas, especially if we take it into consideration that it may not be exactly what we think it is. It has been almost a year since, relying on sources I trusted, I reported that the U.S. Special Forces were running a camp in the northern Jordanian town of Aswafa to train and fund and equip forces to supposedly bring down the Assad regime in Syria. With the covert Israeli military coordination and obvious Jordanian cooperation, these troops made their way from Syria to Turkey and, in a miracle of military tactical genius, were transformed into ISIS, which a mere 3 years captured half of Syria and Iraq, and even better, with a well-publicized decapitations, brought the U.S. back into the Middle East to fight the beheading beast. In short, the U.S., with Israeli help, created their own worst enemies, and Russia now agrees, he says. Mossad transferring spying services and leadership of ISIS, and Israeli military advisors assist the terrorists, claims the aid. That was a Russian aid, by the way. It says a senior aide to the Russian President Vladimir Putin has accused Israel's Mossad of training Islamic State, aka ISIS, terrorists operating in Iraq and Syria, and Iran's press TV reports. And if you remember, guys, here on Israeli News Live, back more than a year ago, as we were exposing the news that we were catching there, where the Russians had bombed a secret base inside of Aleppo, and finding in there 14 special operations individuals in there, including Mossad agents, Saudis, the Turkish were involved in this group as well, and they were directing the operations of ISIS, al-Nusra, and al-Qaeda in the region there. And we've said many, many times before, Barack Obama, when he left all the military equipment there in Iraq, it was definitely left there as a gift for ISIS to be able to, for them just for the taking. And even the photos that mysteriously appeared that John McCain photographed with some of the very leaders of ISIS as well. Now, I do agree that there is a lot of radical Islam that make up the ISIS forces, but when it comes to those heads that are involved in creating this force that could have gotten out of their control, it has been very obvious that the U.S. is one of the main sponsors behind it, and as Barry Chamish points out here, that even Israel was involved as well as the Jordanians. Now, we know the Saudis also involved in that ring of fire as well, and we see John Kerry in the secret audio tapes that were released said that they were sitting back waiting to see for ISIS to topple Bashar al-Assad so that they wouldn't have to get involved in the conflict. Again, too many smoking guns to show us who was involved with ISIS from the very beginning. Aaron Erdem claiming that ISIS militants were captured by the Turkish police and had sarin gas coming into the country to use against the civilian population, to blame it on Assad to justify U.S. ground forces inside of Syria. All these things were happening and nobody paying attention of what's really going on. All right, so now, does this make all the Jewish people bad? No, sir. Does it make all Americans bad? Absolutely not. All right? And that's the whole point. Barry Chamish, as I said, good friend of mine, very faithful Orthodox Jewish man. You know, He loved Israel, but he said, is it really worth what we're going through? That would be his point when it come to going back to the homeland. But Barry, he had to leave his family behind in Israel because of the life threats, and he was nearly killed twice, and he got the hint that if he didn't leave, he would die. So he moved to Florida, and he lived not far from me when he came over here. So as we go on, though, instead of just, I don't want to spend too much time here. I want to show you some latest news that's coming out just today, October 3rd, 2017, Syrian news. ISIS, U.S., HSD, and Al-Qaeda, the anti-Syrian coalition. And they're putting, and as we can see here, I mean, they're using Humvees, ISIS, and everything. Syria really is putting this, and now Russia is really starting to blame the U.S. military, the deep state. This isn't our good friends and family that are fighting for American freedoms around the world. It's not our family that's involved in this. This is the deep state that we go out and we fight a war. We realize we're dealing with some really crazy people that seem to have lost their mind. We're trying to fight for what we believe to be democracy, but at the same time, there's a deep state in behind all that that is running this for a totally different purpose altogether. And so in the article here, they're bringing this out. It's a recent article by Mike Whitney, and the counterpunch sounds a dire warning of what may await us in Syria. Just an optimism is growing that the 7-year war against the NATO Gulfi state-sponsored jihadists is winding down, Whitney says. So there you have it. As a standoff begins to take shape in East Syria, the two rival superpowers are preparing themselves for the worst. Clearly, we have reached the most dangerous moment in the 6-year-long war. As the world watches with bated breath the standoff in North Korea, the coming together of the two superpowers and their allies almost seems inevitable. At the very least, the Syrian Arab Army, the SSA, the Kurdish-dominated so-called Syrian Democratic Forces, the SDF, hereafter referred to as their accurate name, the Hazen Syrian Democratic, will clash and already have to a limited extent. U.S. and Russian forces are embedded with opposing sides, so it is difficult to see how they won't get drawn into future clashes, as we've already seen one Russian general being killed in this conflict that really, in one place, said that the U.S. did this to show that Russia would pay with blood for crossing the Euphrates River. Then we have on top of this, now CNN Tech brings out an article here saying that Russia is now backing North Korea. When North Korea got cut off by China on their internet, Russia steps in and gives North Korea the internet. I mean, now that's really nuts on Russia's part, but the thing is we see that Russia's been so beat up by the sanctions that's happened to them. Russia just doesn't seem to care anymore. Russia seems to make alliances with everybody that's an enemy to the deep state of the United States. With Russia involved in North Korea's internet, things could get more complicated. Attacks against North Korea's hackers or computer servers could now travel through Russia's internet infrastructure. A U.S. attack on North Korea could be seen as a provocative move against Russia. Bolin said that could potentially escalate tensions between the U.S. and Russia. So things are getting nuts. And this whole issue with ISIS is no different. And of course, then we have Kurdistan going on. We have 3 days to hand over control of the airports, according to the Iraqi head there in Baghdad, given an ultimatum. And Israel is supporting the Kurdish people, although they say they're not. And so is the U.S., even though they claim we didn't say they could get a Kurdistan. That's exactly what the U.S. deep state wants, so that they can get control of the rich oil fields there. Come on, don't be fooled in this. Now, how to tame Putin. The articles are coming out like crazy. How they're going to deal with Putin. I mean, it just doesn't seem to be any end. And then I ran across something, friends, that I had to share with you. And I've shared this with you guys many times before in Micah's prophecies that show how that Israel, even though we have been promised to return to our homeland, we would end up coming back out of Jerusalem. Not out of Israel per se, but out of Jerusalem. And then I picked up just the other day a very interesting, I noticed something yesterday that just blew me away. It was the verbiage that God is using in this prophecy right here. I want to back up and share a little bit of this with you real quick as we close out on our news broadcast here. And maybe it might make some sense why, as I say, it's not Israel that is bad or wicked or evil. But there are some key players in our government that have sold out the Israeli people. What they did it for, I don't know. But I found out that Micah actually identifies that. Let's look at it. For let all the peoples walk, each one, in the name of its God, but we will walk in the name of the Lord our God forever and ever. In that day, saith the Lord, will I assemble her that halteth, and I will gather her that is driven away, and her that I have afflicted. Now the halted is the ones that's limping in. The one that, like Jacob. His thigh was touched, it shrunk, and he limped the rest of his life. The true Israelites, the true Jews that went back into the land, God promised that He would bring them back, going down to verse 7, and I will make her that is halted a remnant. Okay, remnant is not everybody that lives in Israel that claims to be Jews are the remnant, alright? A remnant, and her that was cast far off a mighty nation, and the Lord shall reign over them in Mount Zion from thenceforth even forevermore. Now I used to think that they would all end up having to leave regardless. And then I realized the verbiage. I was missing something here. And it happens to be in verse 8. And I've brought this out to you many times before. But I missed one thing. And thou Migdal Eder, the hill of the daughter of Zion. Alright, now Migdal, you can also use it as a place, but Migdal Eder is very important verbiage here that tells you that this here is not the same as the remnant that is the halted one. Alright? And I'm going to just share that with you. King James actually translates it very well. And thou, O tower of the flock, okay? Because Eder is a flock or a group or a gathering there. And Migdal is a tower, a high place, or like a pulpit, one that stands behind a pulpit and gives the orders. And you, O tower of the flock, the stronghold of the daughter of Zion. Alright, the daughter of Zion is the remnant. Okay? But then there is a group that is over the remnant. Unto you shall it come, even the first dominion. The kingdom shall come to the daughter of Jerusalem. And then he says, now he's not addressing the little remnant, but now he says, now, why dost thou cry out aloud? Is there no king in thee? Oh, I forgot. Did you not anoint Prime Minister Netanyahu to be the king over Israel? Is thy counselor perished? For pains have taken you as a woman in travail. Be in pain and labor to bring forth, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in travail. For now shalt thou go forth out of the city, and thou shalt dwell in the field, and thou shalt go even to Babylon, and there thou shalt be delivered. There the Lord shall redeem thee. All right? Now, it seems though, in a way, perhaps maybe the remnant also is suffering as a result of the action of the tower of the flock, as it says here. All right, from the land of thine enemies. So, and what did they do? They went exactly to that. They went to Babylon. And you can use Babylon, whether you want to use it as Rome, whether you want to use it as NATO head, whatever, because they're all one big happy family over there. All right, now also many nations are gathered against thee that say, let her be defiled, and let our eye look upon Zion. But they know not the thoughts of the Lord. And that means, in other words, even though they have done wrong, God is still going to intervene on Israel's behalf. And as Barry Chamish pointed out, maybe ISIS just got out of control for them, and they don't have as much control as they thought they did. I still think they have a lot of control. Russia has pointed out too many times where they're sneaking out the ISIS leaders and taking them to other battlefields, etc. And also to back up what I'm telling you about this, let me just quickly take you to Daniel once again here. And in those days and times shall there many stand up against the king of the south, the king of the Hanegiv, which is Israel. Also the children of the violent among thy people shall lift themselves up to establish a vision, but they shall stumble. All right? So, and it's literally, see, right here, Uvanepa'atzi amcha, and the sons of the lawless of your people will try to marry the vision. See, but they shall stumble in doing so. So there is a lawless amongst Israel that's trying to bring this about. And if we go back to Micah 4, then we see that's exactly what it is. And you, Migdal Eder, the hill of the daughter of Zion. In other words, you, O tower of the flock, that is over the daughter of Zion. Of course, the hill being the stronghold over them. There's the strong place there that's ruling and leading the remnant of Israel. And we're being led by a corrupt government, is what's happening. So when we look at what Barry Chamish says and we put this all together, what do we come down to? Well, We come down to ISIS was created by a lot of different nations together to be able to bring about something that Babylon wanted, to reestablish a Babylonian empire. And believe me, the evil Zionists, not the good Zionists that come home to Israel to see the Mashiach, but that evil group out there that is wanting to control this land, they're not there for the Jewish people. That was just Rome. Because see, we know who put the ones in place over there. We know who did the Migdal Eder. It was the popes of Rome that put certain leaders in place in our country there to kind of rule over the remnant of Israel. And now, you know why. ISIS can be the one that claims responsibility for Las Vegas. It's for a deeper purpose. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun with Israeli News Live.